Carolina Hurricanes off to a good start. Duke's had a very good season, but I think we're all bewildered that you can be +6 in turnovers and lose a football game, but they were this past weekend. And we're going to start with Luke DeCock of the News and Observer, my friend, sir, at Luke DeCock, with, for a lot of reasons, it was cathartic that the Tar Heels could get a win in Charlottesville, of all places. But if there's a program that needed a win more than UNC, I'd love to see it. So good for the Tar Heels to get a win on the road. I don't know what to make of it, but they needed something to feel good about.
Yeah, and I think what to make of it is, this is a team that has gone through some incredible tragedy and hardship over the last, 8 days, 9 days now. Had to go to the funeral of one of their teammates,
right.
Someone who they knew was sick. And, the whole Tylee Kraft thing is just so sad and, so young and all of that. But, it's nice to see that those players, and let's give credit to Virginia, obviously Tony Elliott knows what it's like. Slightly different circumstances, obviously, but having all of his players write notes to UNC. I mean, there was a lot of sort of sportsmanship and the good part of sports on display that over the weekend in Charlottesville. So for UNC to play the way they did, I think is important. But in the end, I think it's really more, it shows what that team can do or could have done all along. When it was firing on all cylinders, because obviously you're never going to want to play harder than you will on that day under those circumstances. Right. And I'm not necessarily criticizing their effort. I think that's just you're seeing the ceiling there of that team and what it could have been. I think what's interesting to me about that and everything that's happened with UNC, not just over the last 2 weeks, but over the course of the season is, I think it's pretty clear. It's clear after the James Madison game that it probably would have been better for everyone involved if Mack Brown had gone out with Drake May and sort of said, I've taken this program as far as I can take it, which is a long way. He did what he came here to do. Let's not lose sight of that. He made UNC football relevant again, even if some of the circumstances feel a little bit Groundhog Day-ish. There's no question he changed the attitude and perception and ambition of that program, got it on stable footing. And then obviously this year has not gone very well. That said, I don't think there's any question that Mack Brown was the right man in the right place at the right time to help this team get through the, Tylee Kraft's illness and then passing. I think there's a lot to be said for when we look back at this season for UNC. Yes, it will be disappointing. Yes, it was not what anyone hoped it would be. But there was a moment of sort of grace. And I think Mack, with his experience, with his humanity, football aside, Mack really does sort of believe in the good of college athletics. And I think you saw him being the right man in the right place at the right time for this team. So, yes, a disappointing season and one that went the wrong direction relatively quickly. And Lord knows that they've tried just about everything over multiple coaching tenures to get the defense fixed, and they did for a grand total of 1 year. But in these very difficult circumstances, very sad circumstances, I did think you saw the players and the team and the program and Mack sort of, rise to the moment and meet it and honor their fallen teammate in the appropriate way.
Luke DeCock of the News and Observer is joining us here at the Adam Gold Show. Mack, as it turns out, was the right person for this particular moment. I do remember, and he might have been the right person to put North Carolina football, UNC football, back on solid foundation, because under Larry Fedora, the relationship with high school coaches had completely eroded. Mack immediately repaired that. They end up with Sam Howell and Drake May at quarterback for the first 5 years. You're not going to get better than that at the University of North Carolina. They won a bunch of games, maybe not always the games they needed to win, but they won a bunch of games. But he was not the same coach. He was maybe more of a program, front man, a much better one than they could have gotten anywhere else. So it was a good thing that they brought him back, but at the same time, I think that the collection of talent that they had, they probably could have done a lot better.
No question. And you look at, the moments when they looked great, both in the first couple of years and in what probably will turn out to be the last couple of years, there was always so much untapped potential there. And to have those two quarterbacks back to back and have so little to show for it, you're going to look at this sort of through a win-loss lens as underachievement. But I do think that understates the depths to which this program has fallen, the disorganization in the last couple of years under Fedora. And Mack came in and really did get everyone, first of all, got everyone moving in the same direction, which was not happening. And number two, really just, not in the sense we're talking about professionalism in college athletics of players, but just the professionalism of the way the program was run. Mack was able to come in and get that where it should be. I think the person who ends up taking over, whenever that is going to find that things, despite some of the lack of success on the field and issues stopping other teams from scoring, is going to find that there's a very, very strong platform for them to build on. Whether they can or not, is obviously going to be a question of coaching and recruiting and all those things that every program has to deal with. But I think when you look back at this, you'll say, yes, maybe certainly there were, it's not maybe, there were missed opportunities on the field. But I think globally the program is in much better shape than it was when Mack walked in the door the second time, and that's a win. That's a win for Mack. It's a win for UNC.
I know I've said it, but I've also heard other people say this. In many ways, Mack 2.0 has been to UNC what Chuck Amato meant to NC State in terms of Chuck made NC State football matter more than it had in a long time, and Mack did the same thing. Part of me wishes, and I understand why, but part of me wishes that they had allowed Butch Davis to hang around a little bit longer. But the academic part, even though Bush wishes he'd have known, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. You had to let him go at that point. So Luke DeCock of the News and Observer, you've been covering college football, college sports a long time. How do you lose a game when you're +6 in turnovers?
I would have said, and this would be a perfectly valid question, when Bryce Young is your quarterback.
Wow.
I know this is a question about Duke football. I want to say this because I'm sure there are other people listening. I think Anish Shroff and Jake Delhomme and Luke Kuechly do a fantastic job on the radio. I learn something every time I listen to them.
Right.
They talk in detail without going over people's heads, and they explain things without dumbing it down. It's a broadcast for the casual fan. It's a broadcast for people who know football. They respect the listener's intelligence. I love that broadcast. They deserve a better team. But when Bryce Young overthrew Leggett, a wide-open Leggett for what would have been a touchdown, Jake Delhomme, who's so good, was just short of speechless. And that said so much. Those guys spent 2.5, 3 hours talking around the fact that there were so many misplays and so many misthrows that an NFL quarterback has to make. And you saw that when Andy Dalton came in. I know this question wasn't about the Panthers, but I did want to give those guys on the broadcast.
It'll give me this opportunity. Fantastic. You saw that play. It was definitely overthrown. Xavier Leggett could have tried to catch it.
No, regardless.
He could have tried to catch it.
In the NFL, that ball has to be in a different place.
No, I'm not even arguing that. But Leggett, alligator armed it, and he did not make a diving attempt. I actually think it was a catchable ball if he lays out for it. But hey, apparently not for Leggett.
As for Duke, we knew going into that game that the defenses were going to be good. Yeah, there were actually quite a few more points scored than I thought there would be. I thought Duke would do a good job against Jennings, who's turned into a fantastic quarterback, really turned SMU's season around. I'm baffled. Duke has obviously struggled on offense at times this year, but to have your defense put you in that position and not be able to play any kind of complimentary football, to use the parlance of the time, it is shocking. But that's college football, man. Weird stuff happens. And, an NFL team probably is, unless it's a very bad one, is probably not going to find itself in that position. You're not going to see 6 turnovers in many NFL games either. Right. But That's just baffling. But that's college football. Weird stuff happens, and Duke's a good football team. They've done a good job of taking advantage of those opportunities at other points in the season. They certainly did against Florida State. That's, you come up empty like that, there's not much you can do. You certainly can't fault your defense.
No, got to make you kick.
That's a tough spot.
Got to make you kick. And here's what I would have liked to have heard from Manny Diaz after the game. And I realize why he would never say it, but it would have been, it's what I would have wanted to say, but also not said it. When they went for 2 in the overtime to win it, and he said, when you have a chance to win it in the first inning, you go for it. I'm like, I'm on board with that. I like the aggression, but I think Manny should have said 2 things. 1, you saw us kick, right? And 2, I was sick and tired of watching us waste this football game. I was done with it. I wanted to either win it or lose it so I could get out of here.
Absolutely.
That's what I would have wanted to say.
When you failed to score and given the opportunity so many times, and you have the opportunity to put the game away, you take it. You do not want to extend that game. I had zero problem with that decision. If anything, it sends a message to your team that you're in it to win it.
Yeah.
So that may be second guessable, I guess, but to me,
no, I don't think it is.
It wasn't to me. Of whatever criticisms you may have of Duke and some of the decisions during the first 60 minutes, I have zero issue with that.
I know. Look, I've been pleasantly surprised with the way they've gone about their business this year. They're a fun watch. Malik Murphy is, he's either awesome or he's no good. It's all over the place with him. They need to be able to run the ball a little bit better, more consistently, but they are 6-2 as we sit here, and I'm not going to complain at all about what Duke has done. All right, quickly to the Carolina Hurricanes. Has anything surprised you about a 5-2 start heading to Vancouver?
Surprised. I'm surprised how good Shane Gostisbehere has been on the power play. Certainly not that he's done it, but that the early results have been that good. I thought that would take, even though he's been here before, I thought that would take some time to gel and a little bit. I thought there were other aspects of it that would take some time to gel just with all the new faces. That process has happened a little quicker for most players. Obviously, I think Roslovic is still trying to figure his way around a little bit. Robinson has been good, but I think they thought there's a hair more from him. There certainly hasn't been a ton of negative with this game.
Nope.
And then you look at the guys, I'm a little surprised just because we keep waiting for it and it hasn't happened, to see Marty Necas leading the team in scoring, to see Jesperi Kotkaniemi playing this well and playing such a good two-way game. Those are all pleasant surprises. Not that they couldn't do it, but it's nice to finally see it happening the way everyone's talked about that it would happen or could happen. Obviously, Jackson Blake, if you go back to September 15th, massive surprise, the fact that he's been able to step in and play like an NHL player. Maybe not at the end of training camp, having seen him go through that process, but certainly coming into training camp, nobody saw that coming to this degree. And obviously, he's slowed down a hair, but there's still a lot there. And I think, Sean Walker, not that he was an unknown, but I really like the way that he sort of fit in to the way the Hurricanes play, really right from game one. William Carrier had a great game one and has bounced around the line for a little bit since then. Really great first two games. But there's the surprises to me are almost all pleasant in the sense that, some of the issues that they might have or have had in past years when you're talking about Necas and Kotkaniemi haven't happened. I do think Andrei Svechnikov needs to finish more of the chances that he's had, but I'm not going to start passing judgment on that after 7 games. But he's on pace for 25 goals. That number has to come up, but he certainly has time to do it. But I think when you look at the way Necas has been playing, the authority really with which he's played, he looks confident. He looks aggressive. There's less of the dipsy doodling. It's a more direct game. He's getting to places where he can score and then scoring. He's setting. there's a lot to like about his game, and that is a surprise to me. It is a pleasant surprise, but it's nice to see him doing what we all knew he could do.
Here's my surprise. The fact that they're 5-2, 5-1 on this road trip. And at best, we have seen good from Sebastian Aho and Andrei Svechnikov, and to an extent, Seth Jarvis. That those guys, that none of them have been bad. None of them have been subpar. They've all been good, but we haven't had great from any of those three yet. And they are where they are, including 5 games on the road.
Yeah, and look, these have not been easy games. You know, the Edmonton game in particular was a real tester in terms of what do you have in the tank on the road, third game of the road trip, or maybe it was that second game of the road trip. I've already third game of the road trip. Third game of the road trip. You give up 2 goals to McDavid. Traditionally, the Hurricanes have done, for the most part, done as good a job as anyone against McDavid, and to get beat twice like that, certainly uncharacteristic. And then to come back and win that game in a building that was fired up and just rocking and rolling at 2-0, showed a lot of steel. That was a big one. And the other part of it is anything that we talked about for this season was the goaltending had to hold up. And obviously Pyotr Kochetkov game in St. Louis was not at his best.
No.
And he's bounced back. Freddie's been good. Now, something's going on with one of those guys, and I've got feelers out. I don't know what, because you don't call up Spencer Martin just so he can come to Vancouver for dinner.
It's a lovely
he's
city.
obviously there for a reason. But those guys have done exactly what you'd ask them to do. Freddie, so far, his numbers analytically are among the best in the league.
Yep.
And that's great to see him get off to a good start with everything that he's been through, and to see Kochetkov bounce back from the St. Louis game, equally promising. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, look, man, when you're 5-2, there's a lot of sunshine and rainbows and puppies and kittens and everyone's happy and blah, blah, blah. When you're 2-5, there's a lot to grumble about. But I think, you made a good point that they've done this without maybe Aho and Jarvis and Svechnikov being at their best. And the fact that they've done it because Necas has been so good, because Kotkaniemi's been so good, because the defense, the retooled slightly defense has found its footing so quickly, and because there haven't been any goaltending issues, are all very positive signs. There's still a lot of upside for this team.
Yep.
There's still a lot of room to go, a lot that can be better, but to see the power play get off to a hot start, that confidence typically tends to bleed over, even when you have your dips and struggles. That good feeling in October when the power play's clicking tends to be a feeling that you can tap back into in January, February, and March and beyond. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the course of the season. That feeling of coming into the season and being able to count on the power play, regardless of kind of what happens after that, you tend to be able to draw back on that. That's certainly, to go back to ancient history, is what happened in 2006.
Luke DeCock, that's right. Luke DeCock of the News and Observer, at Luke DeCock on Twitter. It's good to chat. I will see you maybe Sunday against the Capitals, sir.
I will be there Thursday night.
That's right. We have Halloween. Be in costume.
I will be in my typical costume of middle-aged sports writer.
Coming as Oscar Madison. All right, Luke, I'll talk to you later.
See you, bud.
All right. See, some people don't know who I just referenced.
Yeah, he's going to dress up like Luke DeCock for Halloween.
He is. I forgot that we have a hockey game Thursday night.
I know.
It is Halloween.